Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. This is crazy. I'm so happy to be here as Netflix talks us through its plans to develop original shows and movies into video games. It's wild. You're about to hear from a mixture of creatives and game developers on this detailed process of creating gaming experiences that are still infused with the same authenticity, nostalgia, and love that fans adore from the original series. Throughout the panel, if you have any questions that you'd like answered, please feel free to submit your questions to Netflix's NX channels on Twitter or Instagram at NX on Netflix, and we will be pulling those questions at the very end of the panel. But let us get started with the introduction of our panelists. First off, Chris Lee, Netflix's Director of Interactive Games.
Yeah, we were part of that.
We have Dave Pottinger, President, Bonus XP. Paul Victor, writer on Stranger Things. And finally, Stephanie Wise, Director of Digital and Interactive Media at the Henson Company. Guys, welcome. It is such a pleasure to have you here. First of all, before we get into the serious stuff, what has been your highlight of E3 so far?
Oh, I can go first. I'm probably not alone in saying seeing Keanu Reeves in Cyberpunk 2077. Cannot wait to play that game.
You picked the best one. Now go.
I'm a big Zelda fan, but I'm going to go the other way and say Link's Awakening.
Nice.
I'm very excited for that one.
Nice.
Final Fantasy VII. Really like that.
I'm looking forward to the Lego Star Wars.
Oh yeah, that was cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah,
It's
awesome.
amazing.
Good picks, guys. You did well. Now, Chris, this is a question for you. This is Netflix's first appearance at E3. So what can we expect from Netflix in the gaming world? Big, broad one for you.
Yeah, well, actually, before I answer, if it's okay, I just want to say thank you to my fellow panelists. I know you guys are super busy. Thank you for making time to support us. And also thank you to Jeff Keighley and the E3 overlords. He's literally like the Wizard of Oz, pulling all the levers, and he let us in. So this is a cool opportunity for us to be at E3, and so we really appreciate that. So the question, so we've been working on original content for Netflix for a long time, and we've seen how passionate the fans are getting about these series and films, and it's incredible. And so what we're looking for are opportunities to extend the universe of these shows and these films into other mediums. And to me, it was really obvious to try to do that into video games. So the idea is we would take our original series and films and then find a game developer from the industry who's just as passionate about that content and work closely together with them to bring these things in an authentic way to gamers. Yeah, so that's the idea.
How did it all get started?
So actually, it's an interesting story. We shortly after season 1 of Stranger Things, we realized this is a phenomenon. And it was our first attempt at doing consumer products and merchandise. We had never done anything like that before. So part of the process was bringing in the Duffer Brothers and Sean Levy and brought them into a room, and we showed them some Funko Pops, comic books, these cool T-shirts we were really excited about. And at the very end of the meeting, I kind of looked across the table, hoping that everyone was really impressed with what we were doing. I was actually on the marketing team at the time. I've spent most of my career in gaming, but I was on the marketing team at Netflix. And I asked just, is there anything we're not doing that would be cool? And they only said one thing. They looked at me and we would love a video game. And it was like music to my ears. It was like they couldn't have said anything more interesting. And so, and no joke, about a month before that, Dave Pottinger, who was sitting here, had sent me an email, and he was, no exaggeration, he was like, I will do anything to make a Stranger Things video game. So coincidentally, and so I called him back, and then the rest is history.
I think you're leaving out all the begging.
Subtle, I like it. Let's start diving into some of the games themselves. First off, we have Stranger Things 3, the game, which comes out in 21 days, July 4th, the same day as Season 3. We will get into the nitty-gritty on that a little bit later. Also, as part of yesterday's Nintendo Direct, Netflix announced the Dark Crystal Age of Resistance Tactics. So let's take a look at this clip for some more info on the Dark Crystal.
Ogre slept too long, far too long. Sing me your story. What has become of... Oh! Thra, no! What have they done? Avarice unchecked for an age. Evil takes root. Darkness spreads. But from this dark, light, brighter than the 3 suns, they spark to life. Heroes of Thra, strong and brave. Strength and bravery alone will not save Thra. No! Unlock your true potential. Unite as one! Only together can you defeat what is to come. Heroes of Thra. They're going to need all the help they can get.
The Dark Crystal is one of my favorite fantasy movies of all time. I saw it when I was a little kid, several times in the theater, and it's remained one of those things that has really kind of formed how I think about fantasy. And the chance to work on it is really a dream come true. Definitely one of those bucket list items to have a chance to be involved, even peripherally, with a franchise that's got as much history and kind of fan love as the Dark Crystal.
Well, the Dark Crystal came out when I was about 6 years old, so it couldn't be a more formative age to see a movie that epic and dark and adult, and yeah, it was kind of a mind-blowing experience.
One of the most interesting things about the Dark Crystal is how much lore and how much information there is about the world. Honestly, even more than we knew about when we started the project. And we certainly did all the obvious things. We bought all the books and rewatched the movie both individually and then as a group and made notes. But it's been fantastic to work with the Henson Company and all the people there that love the Dark Crystal and have all this information to share about the world. And it'll be really great to see the fan reaction when Age of Resistance comes out and they realize how much there is there. And our hope is that we can take that a little bit farther and show off some other aspects of the world of Thra to the fans when the game comes out.
So we decided to adapt Age of Resistance as a tactical RPG because we want you as the player to be able to go in with these characters that you have built up over the course of the game. You work with them, how you deploy them, get you a strong attachment to these characters, and let the players control how those interactions play out. And tactics games are great at delivering that because as you go through the course of the game, you're upgrading, but every level is asking you these interesting, new, discrete questions that the previous maps, the previous fights just hadn't asked you, and say, you must use your attachment and understanding of how these characters work to solve this new challenge.
So my favorite moment so far of working on the game was when I saw the Chamberlain in a level. I was so excited. And I realized, wow, yeah, we get to work with these characters. This is awesome.
For us, this project is really kind of the combination of several loves. Our love of tactical strategy games, going all the way back to things like Final Fantasy Tactics, and kind of bringing that forward to a modern audience and showing them how awesome that kind of game can be. And now that by itself would be a fantastic project. And on top of that, we get to add on this awesome story-based world that we've all loved from when we were little. And the chance to combine those two things and then expand upon them and show people some of the elements of the Dark Crystal world that they may not know about, that's pretty freaking fantastic.
Every child of the 80s is crying right now. Seriously. Dave, tell us a little bit more about how you are translating these massive hit series and films into video games.
I think that documentary really starts the answer there. It's about doing things that we love. We started Bonus to make games that we love, and to be honest, we didn't really think we were going to do a lot of third-party IP stuff, but it turns out we're good at it, and I think it's because we pick the projects that we love as much as the things that we would make. I think it requires somebody to work with the content creators, be it Paul or Stephanie or other people, at Netflix and Henson Company or the Duffer Brothers. It's important to embrace it and love it as much as something that you've made, and really, we have artists that are modeling and they're watching the movie just on a loop every single day to get every detail right. Our designers have watched the Stranger Things show countless times, to pick up on little details. Our main collectible in the game is a gnome that's based off of a half sentence that Flo tells Hopper in the first 5 minutes of the first episode of season 1. And there's like 10 people that get that, but those 10 people love the hell out of it, and we love giving that to them. So it's important, I think, to find the way that you can connect on various levels. I think it's also important for us to work with good partners that want us to make the games. And Netflix, Henson Company, the Duffer Brothers, Sean Levy, they've all been fantastic about letting us come and play in their world. And I think that that's often unsaid in terms of making a great partnership with a licensed IP, but the people who have created it have to want the game to be made, and they've helped us out tremendously.
Stephanie, Dark Crystal, what's it been like seeing that translated into a video game format?
It's really been great. To have a legacy property like the Dark Crystal at the Jim Henson Company, and then being able to have a new show coming out and then having it turn into a video game, which just extends the fiction, has been fantastic. And everybody, we're all huge fans of the property at the Henson Company, and then just seeing it have a video game and getting into more places than just on the film and the TV is fantastic. So we're very excited about it.
And Paul, Stranger Things?
Also very exciting. I've been writing on the show since the beginning, and a couple years ago I was nominated to be the liaison between the writer's room and Netflix with some of these other properties and stories. So I've gotten to read and feedback on comic books and novels, and now this video game. And the video game is extra exciting for a couple of reasons. One is that we're all gamers ourselves in the writer's room, and the Duffer Brothers especially, but when we talk about influences on the story in the writer's room, we're not just talking about Ghostbusters or Aliens, we're talking about Dark Souls and Resident Evil and Silent Hill and The Last of Us. And also the characters in our show are gamers. They go to the arcade, like Will desperately wants an Atari for Christmas in season 1, and I think a lot of the fans of the show are gamers as well. So it feels really exciting to see these 3 generations, from the arcade generation to my and the Duffers, like 8 and 16-bit generation to the kids today, all get to get their hands on a Stranger Things video game. It's awesome.
I would just add, so it also makes it like you have to be super credible and authentic when you go and talk to these folks, whether it's Stephanie or Paul or the Duffer Brothers. They're actually gamers, so there's no like faking it and like just using jargon to try to get around a thing. Like it's like legitimate, so it keeps us on our toes for sure.
Do you know what the Duffer Brothers are playing right now?
Oh gosh, the Game Awards, and we were backstage, and we were talking about that, and I
Yeah.
was feeling a little like, God, I need to play more games. These guys have
Yeah.
played everything. But actually, they were talking about a VR game. What was the one?
Astrobot.
Astrobot.
But also
Astrobot.
Red Dead
Astrobot is
Redemption had
awesome.
come up. Like there was.
Yeah, I know Ross just beat Sekiro. Am I saying
Oh, yeah?
that right?
Uh-huh, yeah.
And he's playing like Infinity Sin 2 now, which seems really intense. But yeah, they're hardcore.
Yeah, well, if he beat Sekiro, then definitely.
Yeah.
Dave, what is the biggest challenge working on these two games for Netflix?
I think it's a different challenge on each game. Stranger Things, we did in a mobile game originally. This is the second game, even though it's called 3. And we probably underestimated the amount of work and extra things that we took on making it the official game for Season 3. It turns out that it's really hard to land all these versions of the game on one day on the most secret project that has ever been conceived on the planet. We have paper covering our office windows. Nobody's allowed into our office. It's like 5 NDAs to have a contractor work on the project. And that level of secrecy we weren't really used to. We're used to getting the game to beta and then having anybody that we can come and play it. And of course, that's not possible on this project. So we actually, I think, did something smart originally. We actually took some scope away from the game, and we decided we were going to build a fake demo. We're going to use all the real art assets, nothing spoilery. And we built this demo that we're going to find this necklace that Bob had given Joyce. And it was a chance for us to demonstrate the gameplay mechanics and how the game played, but not give away anything for Season 3. And we'd actually planned to debut that demo here at E3. And then, of course, we got the opportunity with Nintendo to show that off at GDC, which was awesome, except then we didn't have anything to do now. So the team actually just this morning finished the second fake demo for the game. That'll actually be coming out, and people can play that while they're waiting for it. And yeah, it's kind of fun to tell that story, but it turns out it's a lot of extra work to do. The team's done a great job kind of rolling with the churn there, but I think just for us, the stress of not being the one to spoil the party and leak the game. The game's come along, it's been iterated, and we're actually really happy with that. I think when July 5th comes around and we've released the game, and we're going to be pretty happy. Not as happy as the Duffer Brothers and the folks actually associated with the show, but I think we're really proud of that. The challenge with Dark Crystal, I think, is living up to 30 plus years of fandom and the expectations that comes with. And it's a different level of stress, but I think being true fans of the IP, and a funny story there, our concept artist, Andy Cottenham, he lives in Canada and works remotely. We haven't gotten him out of Canada for 5 years, except to come down and visit the Henson Company and go to the Creature Workshop. And I didn't have to ask twice. And that excitement and that passion for working with something that people have loved for that long, I think it makes it easy, but it's a lot to live up to.
I understand you've also prepared for us some gameplay footage of some expanded content. So let's take a look.
So this is from Stranger Things. This is the town of Hawkins, represented in all the new graphics glory. We've got Mike and Lucas trucking down the street there. One of the big things that's important to us and to Netflix with both of these games is to do what we call Season Plus Plus. We're giving people the content of the show, but we're also giving them just as much, if not more, content in the game beyond the show. We don't want people to play the game and feel like there isn't anything new to discover. This is a labor of love, something for the fans to come in and really experience what the world of Hawkins is like. And this is a side quest that's in the game. We've had to do a few cuts here and there to avoid spoilering. Here now we switched to co-op mode, so it's a split-screen experience. It's a local couch co-op game. You can just drop in, drop out very easily. In this particular side quest, the owner of the flower shop has somehow, we can't really explain how here yet, but gotten locked inside the bathroom, and we need to go get her out. But she's had this tense relationship with her sister, and so these notes for how to find the key are hidden throughout the level. And as you go through this, one of the things that we've been trying to do is marry, this concept of the extra content with something that feels appropriate for the show. Here we've switched characters to Dustin to do this hacking mini game that opens that door. And there's a little bit of co-op there. They have to stand on those two plates to open that door. And now we're back into the creepy Stranger Things vibe. They've gone into this dark room. You see Dustin's awesome hairspray attack, my personal favorite attack in the whole game. If you've seen the season 3 trailer when he sprays Lucas and the gang because they scare him from behind. That's one of the fun parts of taking something so serious as Stranger Things and turning it into a game, is that we get to latch onto some of those little moments of levity and turn them into big mechanics. So.
There's some dark moments in there too, though.
But it's fun to, like the gnome thing earlier and the hairspray, to get to go take the IP and make a game and have a little bit of a different take on how things work. So they found the notes now to remind the person in the bathroom that she hid the key someplace else back where she was making out with a foreign exchange student last year. And so now they're in a different area of the town, the shop, and they're going to go let her out here, and she's going to actually reward them with what we call a trinket. That's part of our big gear system in the game. We have this huge cast of 12 characters that you can switch between at any point in the game, and we have this gear-based, crafting-based trinket system that you can use to buff up the party. So here's our party screen with the secret silhouettes of all the characters that you haven't unlocked yet. And then they've just equipped that trinket, which gives a bonus to the whole party. And now they're going to go use that bonus to engage in our ubiquitous thugs that are inexplicably roaming around Hawkins and enjoy getting beat up by teenagers. So we've seen Mike's special ability there is a taunt. He can yell some awesome 80s phrase, and everybody comes to attack him, and they get a little bit of a combat debuff, so the co-op character can come in and do some extra damage. I think Dustin's robot attack was in there too.
I feel like we should start a band called Ubiquitous Thugs. I really like that. So Paul, you touched on it before, that you have been liaising sort of with these guys on this game. Can you tell me what that actually looks like on a practical level?
Sure, yeah. First of all, I know that Netflix works closely to make sure that your company got all the assets they needed, everything from scripts to like maps and blueprints and 3D photos of all the locations, so that it felt really accurate and authentic. And then on behalf of the writer's room and the Duffers, I took a look at story ideas as they were coming in for side quests. I looked at scripts to make sure that characters were, the dialogue felt authentic and everything was in line tonally with the show. I think we worked really hard to make sure that the game company has total creative freedom to tell these plus stories while keeping it in line with the universe and the mythology and the characters on the show.
It's been a great relationship. One of the first tasks that we had was to gamify the script of the season, which we also did with the Dark Crystal project as well. And then we did that and put together, it was 8 or 9 pages, I think, of quests, and then we reviewed that with Paul, and he gave us some pointers, and it would be better if you tweak this. And he's been working with us really the whole project, and just a couple weeks ago did a script review for us on all of our final dialogue, and to make 11 feel truly like 11. There were a couple of places where we had a few too many prepositions in her sentences and things like that. She talks in a very particular manner, and it's been really very much a collaborative effort, I think, all the way throughout.
And Stephanie, what about you? How have you been collaborating?
Well, it's been really great working with both Netflix and Bonus XP. We've had them go to the Jim Henson Creature Shop so that the team could actually see the puppets and the maquettes and everything, so that they could take pictures and see the models and get in tune. We've had Lisa Henson come in and meet with the team and kind of let them know, well, these are how the Gelflings actually would look, and these are the types of things that you need to make sure that you are bringing to the game that makes sure that it stays true to both the series and the film. So we are working in tandem. We've given them a lot of assets, and we're still giving them more as we are working with Netflix to finalize the show. So we are, anything that they've requested, we're trying to get them so that we make sure that the game looks and feels like the show and the film.
And Chris, how is Netflix specifically involved?
Yeah, well, just building on Stephanie's answer there too. I mean, getting us Agra for the marketing shoot for that, you know, that we helped put that trailer together. I mean, it's such a collaborative effort. But yeah, no, we also would accompany the game developers onto set at times. So they filmed Dark Crystal in London, and we brought the game developers out there to see, like, at scale, this massive production. And it's kind of a moment in time, because once it's gone forever. So just having that opportunity and that access, you know, from our partners is definitely helping to keep that game on an authentic track, you know, right from the start. But yeah, we're trying to create this magic between the, you know, game studio and the content creators. You know, we spend a lot of time up front sitting down with the content creators talking about, you know, we would like to make a game, what type of genres kind of make sense for this universe, what are the elements that we need to draw out, and how do we want to position it so it feels right. There was an afternoon where I invited Paul over, and I was like, hey, what about horror games for Stranger Things? Is that too scary? Is that too far? And so we sat there for hours playing horror games just to kind of feel like, would Stranger Things fit in that world?
Oh,
I know, my job's really hard. They get some perks. But no, and then, you know, after that, we, you know, kind of on the other side of it, we sit down with the game development studio, and we partner with people we think are really talented and who can do amazing work. So our goal isn't to then, like, box them in to say, the game's got to look like this. It's to say, you know, we're working with you because of what you can do. You know, looking at the source material, you know, how do we bring this to life in the right way? And then it's, there's a lot of little things, and you got to get them right. So there's never a moment where you just, like, step back and then let it go. But, you know, it's just being there to help reinforce that authenticity, looking at things. You know, myself and my team come from the games industry, so we also think of it as, like, no task is too small. If there's, like, a bug, you know, we'll say, like, we can enter in bugs into your, you know, bug tracker. You know, there was a case recently where I think fans kind of hate it when the characters from a film or a series don't look like themselves when they get translated into games.
It's been a bit of a theme of this year's E3.
There's a thing about that. So there was, you know, there is a case recently where, you know, with 11, we really just wanted to get her right. You know, we knew we had to, and so we went 16 rounds of, like, back and forth. And it was good, though. It wasn't like, you know, fix this. It was like, let's make sure we get her right. And in the end, I think we were all really happy with where it landed.
I think we're up to 17 because they're redoing her this morning, actually.
Dave, it was touched on in the earlier video, but can you speak more to why you chose to adapt the Dark Crystal Age of Resistance as a tactical strategy game?
Yeah, it felt right immediately. The original idea came from our senior concept artist, Andy Cottenham. And if there's anybody who lives and breathes and bleeds Dark Crystal, it's him. And it's, you know, the world of Thra is so rich, and there's so many pieces, you know, even stuff that, you know, the most ardent fans don't yet know about. So many creatures that we can use, and it was a great marriage between what the franchise and what the world had in order to be shown, and the type of gameplay that, and, you know, back in the old days, we were known for. We have a good chunk of the people that worked on Age of Empires for Microsoft back in the day. And we built that franchise, and so strategy is kind of in our blood, whether we want it to be or not. Every game that we make is got a lot of depth into it. And it's a great marriage between those two things.
You've also got Bruce Shelley, who, if I could just mention, is like a god among game designers. And I think, yeah, like that's really in his wheelhouse for strategy.
Yeah, Bruce is he's in the Hall of Fame. He's our chief designer. He works back with Sid Meier on Civilization and Railroad Tycoon. He taught me the industry when I joined Ensemble Studios. For some reason, Microsoft sent us out on the road together to talk about the game, and Bruce told me not to swear as much. Maybe that didn't take. He mentors a lot of our team now, and it felt like a great return to what we know how to do, and I think in turn then service the IP really well. Make a game that is rich and deep in terms of gameplay, to match what the franchise has.
Stephanie, you're a longtime Dark Crystal fan. What are you most excited about with this game?
For me, I was 10 when the Dark Crystal came out, and the one line that kind of stands out is when Kira breaks out her wings and Jen says, "Oh, you have wings?" And she says, "Yes, I'm a girl," and then she flies. So, that is one of the things I'm looking forward to in the tactic game, being able to utilize those wings for missions and other kind of combat. And just to kind of tag on to what Dave was saying about the world of Thra, it is so vast and rich, and there's so many creatures that, were in so many of the different creation myths books and the World of Dark Crystal books that you kind of only touched upon in the film and in the Age of Resistance show, that now we're able to showcase them in the game and really get to find out more about them and what they do. And the same thing with the Gelflings. You're able to see there's a lot of different clans, 7 different clans of Gelflings, and you're going to be introduced to them and learn more about them in the game. So we're really looking forward to that as well.
There's so much action this season.
Yes.
I don't think that's a spoiler, hopefully. There's just so much action throughout the season that I think seeing that translate into the game is like a very natural transition.
Yeah, it was a very easy game script to write.
And Paul, what about you with Stranger Things? You're very close to the project. What are you most excited about?
I mean, I'm definitely excited to play all these playable characters from the show and explore Hawkins inside the game, but speaking personally, couch co-op is that's my whole video game childhood. It wasn't even the couch, it was like sitting in front of the couch with my friends, passing the controller back and forth, or each with a controller when we were fancy. But that's, and it feels like it's such a perfect fit for the show, to get to be with your friends and play through this game together.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Dave, I'm sure fans are wondering just what characters from Stranger Things they will be able to play in the game. Is there anything you can share on that?
I think we have two new characters we can talk about today. I'm going to show that.
Yeah, roll the thing.
That's Max. She has we wanted to play to her athleticism from season 2 and presumably in season 3. So she's got this cool karate kick, and then she has this really awesome secondary ability, a special power called Medic, that she tosses out hearts which heal the party. The game has a nice way for you to trigger that when you're playing the other characters. So there's a lot of cool combos you can get out of that. And when you play with Max as a second character, you don't have to worry about taking as much damage. And then every character has a special trinket, and hers is Hot Foot, so she adds fire damage to her kick. Perhaps not exactly canon for the show, but it makes the game a lot more fun. So again, that's another way where we can take what's in the show and extend it in a fun way. It helps that the old school graphic style. We can take a few more liberties than something that would be realistically rendered, say like the Dark Crystal, and it helps to kind of lighten the nature of the game.
All right, and let's check out the second character.
Everybody wants to know about 11, and a funny side story there. Chris mentioned visiting the set earlier when we went out to the Stranger Things set. We got all this great reference material from Netflix and the production of the show. they're all headshots and all the cool shots of the characters. Nobody takes pictures of the floor. And our game is a lot of looking at the floor. So we went out to the set to take pictures, and we actually ran into Millie. And she chastised us pretty hard for how she was portrayed in the first game.
What did she say?
She was, that she wasn't, if you played the first game, you had to finish the whole first game and you unlocked 11 as a special character. At the time, 11 was in whereabouts unknown at the end of season 1, between season 1 and season 2. So we had to not spoil season 2, so that's how we had to do it that way. But, the questions that we get about the game, they all start with what are 11's powers and abilities. So,
but the surprising thing was that she had played the entire game, which was pretty cool. And she was also very grateful, and she had a lot of fun with it. So that I was surprised to know that the cast and the team were really into it as well. So it's always nice.
Yeah, when we were working on that first game, we had given the cast and the production crew an alpha build, and we could track every time that they played it. One of the cast members, I won't say who, fired it up 71 times. So Paul mentioned earlier that it's the show is about gamers by gamers, and it is really nice to see that the cast takes that into account too. But 11's power in the game, she does a kind of psychic push, and then she has a big AoE damage bomb that actually is the most expensive power in the game. There's a trinket you can get to reduce that, but then you can get a trinket to spice up her damage, and she is certainly the most powerful character in the game. Everybody wants to play 11.
Okay, before we move on to Q&A, Chris, what is next for Netflix in the gaming arena?
Oh yeah, so we saved a special announcement for the end of the panel. I'm super excited to share with everybody live for the first time ever. We are launching a new Stranger Things game on mobile platforms coming in 2020. Excited to be partnering with Next Games out of Helsinki, Finland. Who have crafted this RPG puzzle hybrid game that has location-based technology, meaning that no matter where you're at in the world, you can fight and battle against the Upside Down, even in your own backyard. Also cool, they've developed this amazing 80s retro Saturday morning cartoon art style that we've absolutely fallen in love with. I can't wait to share more with you guys, but I think that's all I'm allowed to say about that. So we're very excited. Stay tuned for more on that one. But also, too, later in 2019, we've actually been really busy over the past year making new friends, and we have a number of projects coming out. You guys may have seen in Fortnite Season 9, we had a Scoops Ahoy from Stranger Things show up in the mall there. So there's a bit more behind that in a few weeks. And then, we've got a few other projects. So
everyone's like, ooh.
Yeah, very excited.
No, that's fantastic. Let us open it up to Q&A. So from Netflix's NX social channels, please welcome Max Mills from the NX team.
Hello, hello,
you're
hello.
coming from this side, okay.
So we've had the questions firing through while you guys have all been talking. I think this first one's probably for Chris, Paul, and Stephanie. Will these video games based on TV shows and films be expansions on these stories, or just based on adaptations of the current plot?
So I think our goal, the vision, is for it to be both. So you would have some of the very cool, epic moments that you would see on screen translate into the video game in a cool way that you play and maybe explore. But at the same time, the video game medium just allows for interactivity. So I think that's like the potential there is what's exciting.
I think one of the things that gamers want is not just to play through what they've already watched, to be able to expand that and, okay, well, when this was going on in the show, what was this character doing over here? And then being able to see and play and kind of figure out, oh, well, this is a whole new exploration that I didn't even know about that was happening in this part of the world here. So, back in the early 90s, I think the way that games were done was you have a movie or a TV show and you're playing a specific episode or you're playing the storyline. And people wanted more. They wanted to do more. And I think that's pretty much the way that games that are based off of movies and shows are doing now. And I think that's what we are doing, where you're able to kind of have elements from the show and different story elements there, but then moving past that and being able to see what else that can be discovered.
Paul, anything to add?
I mean, everything that we just said, and also like sometimes it's an opportunity to fill in some backstory for characters, to learn more about where they came from, and tell, you know, there's a Stranger Things comic book that retells the story of season 1 from Will's perspective in the Upside Down. Like, doing some of those things in video games feels like an opportunity.
Stephanie, this next question actually kind of ties into translating from one format to another. How did you tackle translating the distinctive kind of practical puppetry style of Dark Crystal to a video game?
Well, you know, for the Henson Company, the look and feel of the puppets is really intrinsic to the show, and we wanted to make sure that the developer Bonus XP, they're staying true to our look and making sure that when people are playing their game, they're like, oh, okay, it's not just, you know, any kind of animation or CGI, but that it has the nuances that are very particular to the puppetry. But I'm going to let Dave continue because...
one of the interesting things that I mentioned earlier, that our artists are watching the show. I don't know how they multitask like that, but you know, they're watching while they're working. But we actually changed the way that we built models to build models that were in line with how the puppets were constructed, so that when we rig and animate them, we're naturally animating them the same way that the actual puppeteers would do.
Awesome. Chris and Dave, I guess, how are these games going to play, and where will they be available to play?
Oh, sorry, what was that? Can you repeat that?
How are these games going to play, and where will they be available to play?
So, in terms of like where, for us, it's really about the audience. You guys, most gamers have a console or a PC or a device that they're playing their games on. And so we want to meet you where you're at. And you know, a lot of the games that we're doing are multi-platform, but it's sort of case by case, where it's, you know, we want to make sure that the game that we're developing and the IP, it makes sense on that platform. So like the game that Next Games is working on for us, it is optimized for the mobile experience. So I feel like maybe the answer is kind of everywhere, and it kind of depends on the game. And then how will they play? I mean, they're going to be a lot of fun.
I think the answer I would give to that question is we wanted to make games that made people who are enjoying the show happy, similar to how Chris started. For us, that meant moving to console as the primary platform. You know, all 3 consoles, same day for the release on all those. And then, you know, PC, Mac, we want you to play those with the gamepad, ideally. But of course, it's playable with a mouse and keyboard too. And yeah, each platform has its own particular eccentricities for how people want to play. I think for us in this round of games, the big shift was moving to something that felt authentic as a game, and that was console.
Part of the idea is that if you've maybe not watched Stranger Things because you've lived under a rock for the last few years, or maybe you weren't alive in the 80s and so you're not as familiar with Dark Crystal, we're actually hoping to bring people into these franchises through the games. So we want the games themselves to be standalone, fun, exciting experiences that you want to finish or go back to. And then, like on the other side of it, if you are a fan, if you come from it that way, there's that feeling of authenticity. So ultimately, you know, we hope that we're serving like multiple audiences on that.
Awesome. And this is to Chris as well. Will the 2 announced games so far with Dark Crystal and Stranger Things 3 be digital only, or will they have physical release?
Ooh, that's a good question. We're focused on digital delivery of the games. However, we are also exploring a physical format for the games as well. Nothing to officially announce, but I would think that is a highly probable outcome.
It's a great E3 answer.
Yeah, very vague. This was a big one that came through. When is Striking Vipers X being released?
Is it weird to say I would actually really want to play that game?
Not weird at all.
God, we love Black Mirror, and it freaks me out every time I watch it. And what an amazing episode. I kept thinking to myself, did they really make that game? But we don't have a Striking Vipers game in the works, so I don't want to mix the messages here.
And this one's kind of to everyone. What's your favorite upcoming PS4 game and why? And off the back of that, what first got you interested in gaming? So, Stephanie, you want to pick it up?
I'm sorry.
Do you want to pick it up? What's your favorite upcoming PS4 game, or just game in general, and why? And what first got you interested in gaming and interactive?
I don't really know what. That's a hard question because I don't really know which is going to be my favorite yet.
Just say Cyberpunk.
First, fine, Cyberpunk. Yes, Keanu Reeves.
Yeah.
And then what?
What first got you interested in gaming?
What got me interested in gaming? I started doing educational games back in the late 90s, and it was a lot of fun, and it was a different medium to kind of extend learning. And then I got into doing games that were just entertainment, not edutainment, and that was more fun. And so that's kind of been my experience in going from different publishers and working on games that were feature films and kind of extending that experience and having fun doing that. So that's kind of how I got into it.
How about you, Dave?
Certainly Cyberpunk, both Zeldas, to be honest, but maybe a little bit more preference for Link's Awakening. In terms of what got me started, my parents will love this. They made me learn how to program when I was in 4th grade, and told my teacher I couldn't get an A unless I did all this extra credit, and I freaking hated it. It was awful, and I refused to do it. And then when I got to college, I realized that I really wanted to, and Wing Commander 2, absolutely, bar none, was the game that I want to do stuff like this. And I changed my major to computer engineering and started a game company on a credit card somebody was dumb enough to give me. That company didn't work out very well, but it was a great demo for getting a job in the industry.
Awesome. And Chris, this last question is for you, and I'll read it verbatim. Question: if Cowboy Bebop is huge, will you promise to make a game right now on stage? Thank you for saying yes.
We'll work on it.
I mean, so the truth of the matter is, it's like this matchmaking process where we take the IP and we have to find the right developer to do it justice. Apparently, Dave is volunteering.
My studio will volunteer for me, whether I do it or not.
And so, there's part of the evaluation. It's kind of like setting two people up. You're like, well, this is what this is like, and what are you guys into? And so I want to see it happen personally, and I promise to work to try to make that happen. Is that fair?
So we'll take that as a yes.
That's perfect. That's all we have time for today. Guys, thank you so much for coming on this panel. It's been really fascinating. And enjoy the rest of your E3. Thank you.